Okay. All right. So this is a very important workshop for all of you because I guess it ties in with my academic writing workshop, but academic vocabulary really important for you as well. All right. So just so to remind you, please put in your chat, your student number, and you can chat to me and others on the screen. Oh no, my computer's doing something strange. Hang on. Okay, looks like I'm all good. Yeah, so you can chat to me if you like, chat to each other. So get rid of that. All right, and again, this is being recorded. All right, so let's start with the acknowledgement. QUT acknowledges the Turrbal and Yagara as the First Nations owners of the lands where QUT now stands. We pay respect to their elders, laws, customs, and creation spirits, and we recognise that these lands have always been places of teaching, research, and learning. QUT acknowledges the important role that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people play within our community. All right, so we have a good number of people here today, and I think I'm familiar with some of your names. Have you all, just give me a thumbs up or something, how many people have been to our workshops or lounges before? Hi, Michael, nice to see you here. Hey, maybe it's new to some of you. Okay, great. It's so funny. Sometimes people say hello to me on campus, and it's not really fair because I don't get to know everybody in this environment. Well, just so you do know, I'm one of two language and learning educators, and we make up the writing support team, and we have offerings. Our offerings are either workshops or writing circles. Our workshops, today is a workshop, and it really is an opportunity for me to talk a lot on a given topic, and today is on vocabulary. In our workshops, we always include peer discussions because we know many students like the opportunity to connect with others. It's difficult to do that sometimes as an HDR student. So we will be starting off today with a little breakout room. Perhaps if you're in your pajamas and you're not wanting to do that, that's fine. You can stay in the main lobby with me. But I do want to start with that. Do stick around though, if you don't want to go in. So yes, all of the workshops are recorded and then they'll be put on the student Blackboard site. Our writing circles, really similar, but we try to make them more interactive. And so Kerry Freeman, Dr. Kerry Freeman, she's my colleague. We try to have interactive sessions. We provide exemplars and practical activities in the writing circles. So that's really the difference between them. Sometimes in a writing circle, you may be asked to read something or prepare something as well, which we sent out in an email. So that segues to the topic, today's topic. So I have so much to talk about today that I actually decided just to say it to you instead of writing it all down because it might be overwhelming. Some of you might find some of the information basic, but please understand there's definitely more advanced information that we'll be covering as well. So even if you do find some of the information basic, I think it's always good to be reminded of it. Okay, so we're going to be talking about slang, colloquial language, phrasal verbs, academic verb choices, personal pronouns, active and passive voice, subjective and emotional language, cliches, idioms, contractions, abbreviations, something called nominalization, which I'll talk to you about, something called a parallel structure, which is so important for everybody to know and understand, and also a little bit of discipline specific. So lots and lots of information for you today. All right, so here we go. We're going to go straight off into a breakout room. So I'd like you to, these are very clear instructions. Please don't get in there and go, oh, what do we have to do? There's just a couple of things. Introduce yourself to begin with. And it's always really good practice to explain your research succinctly. You know, sometimes you might meet someone and they say, what's your thesis? What's your research on? Excuse me. And very often we think of all these this complex information. So we need to be able to tell a person quickly and easily. So this is a practice for you today. Explain your research topic in a few sentences. Okay, and then I want you to talk about why you're here. Do you have any problems around academic writing? And what is it exactly you want to learn today? Okay, so we'll only do it for 10 minutes. So it's 1:06 on my clock. So we'll come back at 1:15. Once again, if you don't want to go into the room, that's fine. But if you do, please enjoy the opportunity to connect with your cohort. So here we go. I'll put you into a room. If for some reason nobody else is in your room, I may need to change you. So please be patient. All right, see you soon. Hi there, that's fine if you're a little bit late. Thank you. We've just had an opportunity to get together in a breakout room. So welcome back, everybody. I hope that you enjoyed that little conversation. As I said, Kerry and I find it really important to provide opportunities for you to meet your cohort. We want to establish a community of practice, and I think opportunities like a breakout room can do that. All right, but we do have a lot to get through. So sorry if you can see that. Can you guys all still see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. The line has gone from around it. So, okay, please let me know if you have any issues with that. All right, so we're going to look at who is your audience. So obviously that might seem a very obvious question, but I think it's important to remember that according to Evans, Gruber, and Zobel, the only people who carefully read a given thesis are the project supervisors, the examiners, and also a select audience of specialized academics. So based on that, this means that the vocabulary that you choose, obviously it's a disciplinary vocab as well. So you are able to keep this in mind as well when you're choosing your vocab. All right, so I'm sorry, I've just got so many little screens here. All right, so I've just sent you a link to thesis examination guidelines. And I think it's really important that you all know what the guidelines are for your examination. So these guidelines, they're actually provided to all examiners. And I think by using this document, let me just get rid of some of my thing here. It's going to help you evaluate your thesis. So this document needs to be convinced that the HDR understands the topic in the way that you write, and also ultimately the words that you choose. So, oh, I haven't gone to the next slide. So sorry. I've got a little bit of a strange setup I'll get into the groove. So sorry, here it is. Here are the guidelines, and that was the link that I just sent to you. Point number 5 in the guidelines is the thesis should exhibit the same form of disciplined writing as would be expected for publication in a journal of international standing. So everything that you write, the way you write, the words you choose need to be succinct. All right, I'm getting it together. All right, so now we're going to just talk about academic vocabulary versus, you know, just the vocabulary in everyday spoken English. So vocabulary is the building blocks of a language. I thought before we get into it exactly, it might be fun to see if anybody out there knows how many words there are in English. Would anybody like to have a guess? Margaret says too many. Well, according to Google, is anybody out there Googling it right now? There are more than 170,000 words in English. And so when we think of vocabulary, the things that you need to think of are part of speech. Well done, Michael, that's exactly what I have. 171,146. So you need to know the parts of the speech, which will tell you how to use the word in a sentence. So for example, is it a noun? Is it a verb? Is it an adjective? We also need to, we are able to figure out prefixes that belong to the word, that they are the words, the short words that come before the word. They can change a word's meaning. So a prefix, maybe let's get some interaction happening here. Does anyone want to put a couple of prefixes in the chat for me? What is a prefix? Yes, they're those short words that come before a word. So for example, if you say forgettable, what's a prefix we can use before forgettable? Okay, good. What are some other prefixes? There's so many. Good. In, dis, com. Okay, great. So these are what prefixes are, and they can actually change the meaning of a word. You know, IR in front of regular, it means not regular, irregular. Okay, then we have suffixes. Suffixes are the additional parts at the end of a word, and they can change the word class. So if I give you the word agree, what is a suffix we can put with agree? Oh, Michael's put, oh yeah, good, meant, great. Able. So able means it's an adjective, and I know that. And meant means it's a noun. Francisco, un is a prefix. It comes at the beginning. But if I say meant or shin or ing or ed, I can know the word form. Okay, and that's always really helps. So heavy is an adjective, heaviness with the NESS, the suffix means it's a noun, and I know that for sure. And this can help us when we're writing. So the other things that vocab does is we have grammar and prepositions, countability of nouns, collocation. Collocation are words that go with another word. So if I talk about Christmas, if I give you the word Christmas, what words collocate with Christmas? What can you put together with Christmas? Good, Christmas tree. Christmas Eve, Christmas party, Merry Christmas, Christmas elf, yay, good. How about brother? Can I say large brother? Maybe you can, but instead of large, big, we say big brother and little brother. So it's really interesting. And if English is not your first language, it's really important to know that sometimes the collocations that you have in your language may not be the same as in English. And even the word order. Sometimes in some languages, like Portuguese or Spanish, the adjective will come after the noun. So there's also that, ordering as well. So I do want to say spelling as well is important. You need to get the spelling correct, because that will frustrate your examiners if you don't, and also your pronunciation. When you do have those milestones, if you go to your confirmation seminar, your final seminar, and you don't know how to pronounce a word, it's not going to look good on you. So that's vocabulary in general. When we talk about academic vocabulary, we think of the tone in academic vocabulary and writing to be formal. That means it shouldn't be conversational or casual. Your job is to make your writing precise, concise, objective, and impersonal. We will be talking about subjective words later on, but in general, this is what academic writing is and what academic vocabulary is as well. We choose words that give that are objective, impersonal. Sorry, we choose words that are objective, and we avoid direct reference to people or feelings, and instead we emphasize objects, we emphasize facts and ideas. Okay, so your job is to convince your examiners, so you need to use that precise language as well. Okay, so moving along, in everyday spoken English, I think I'm just going to give you the answer. Everyday spoken English that you meet and you talk to your friends every day, there's only 2,800 words. Well, I guess that's good news. That's a lot less than the earlier figure. Academic words contain 570 of the most frequently used words in academic contexts. I want to tell you about this academic word list. So I'll send out in the follow-up email today, I'll send you a link to this information. But there is an academic word list created by someone. I think it's a New Zealand professor actually. And there are 10 sub-lists and they explain all of the academic words. But more importantly, they talk about their word families, and word families is a really great way for you to have that lovely cohesion in your writing. And I'll come back to that in a second. So each list has 60 words. And if English is not your first language, it's really important when you establish understanding of that word, you need to read it, you need to hear it, speak it, and write it. So if you look on the right here, I have an example. This is sublist number 1. And if you look at, which one will I show you? See, well, let's do the first column. See, it says analyze. So what's this word form of analyze? Can you guys tell me, is it an adjective, a noun, a verb? What is that one? Analyze. Yes, good. It's a verb. If you look down that list, these are all the words that belong to analyze. So we have analyzed, analyzer, analyzers, and so on. Can you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 down? It says analysis. So analysis, what's the word form here? The analysis. Yeah, it's a noun. So according to this wonderful professor who's compiled this list, analysis is the most frequently used word in this word family. I don't know if that's important or not, but it just means that, and I think if English is not your first language, it's a really good idea to go and have a look at this word list and become familiar with the words, and also the most commonly used word, and also what are the other words in the word family. So I'll explain it a little bit more. Oh, here we go. I've already written it for you. So we've got analyze and all of the words that go in it with their word family, and analysis is the most frequently used word. I'm going to give you an example of how to use word families in your writing. So when we're writing, okay, you have your paragraph and you have your first sentence, and sometimes you have a block and you're thinking, oh, what can I do next? How can I write next? What we do is we look at that sentence that we've written and we choose one of the words from it and we change the word family. So what I've done here, if we look at the first sentence, I've written supervisors need to communicate regularly with their students. Okay, so I've taken the word communicate, which is, what is it? A noun, a verb, an adjective. What's communicate? Good. This is helpful to know if you're actually listening to me as well. It's a verb. So I know the word family of communicate is communication. So in my second sentence, I'm saying, in fact, regular communication is one of the keys to a successful HDR journey. So I've got that lovely connection between my two sentences. And I've even done it with the word regularly. What's the word form of regularly? Let's see if we have any grammar nerds here today. So regular is part of the word family. Regular is an adjective, but regularly is an adverb. Good job, Idari. So regularly, usually ly at the end means it's an adverb. And it's not important. You guys aren't here to be English teachers, but it's just to show you how to have that beautiful connection. If you are interested in how to have connection between your sentences, I encourage you to come along to the Writing Circle on Cohesion, or even go and watch the previous Writing Circle, which is on the Student Blackboard site. So that's why it's really important to know what your word families are. And sometimes it's important to know what the word form is. Is it a noun? Is it a verb? So that you can find the word family. Okay, so we'll move along now to discipline-specific vocabulary. So discipline-specific are the words that you use in your field of study. And really, they're not used very much outside of your discipline, which is why I said earlier, that's good news when we talked about who's actually going to read your document. It's important for you to build your knowledge of discipline-specific vocabulary, and you do that by reading. I'm going to give you a little test here. My first example, I want you to tell me what discipline this belongs to. So we have cardiovascular system, prosthesis, and psoriasis. What faculty is that? Good. The Faculty of Health or Medicine. Okay, great. Next one, ready? Return on investment, venture capital, depreciation. Good. Well done. Again, if this is your field, if this is your discipline, you need to know these words, you need to know how to spell them, you need to know how to pronounce them. But if it's not, it might be nice for you to know it, but it's not important. All right, last one. Legalization, act, statute, and enactment. Okay, good job. So it's law. So really important that you read. And if there are words that you haven't heard of in your discipline, it's important. Check them. What's the word? How do I pronounce it? And if you see lots of authors using it, it's important that you start to use it and know it as well. All right, so I've taken the word psoriasis, and as we talked about before, we need to know the meaning, the parts of the speech, the word family. Does it have any prefixes or suffixes? Sometimes they don't. Grammar, prepositions, is it countable or uncountable? And that will help me know what verb goes with that word. Does it have any collocations? Remember, we talked about Christmas tree. Does psoriasis have a collocation? What's the register, which means the tone? Is it formal? Is it slang? And how do you pronounce it and how do you spell it? So this is it. It's not important. As I said, you don't need to know this word, but if you do come across a discipline-specific word, it's a good idea for you to do this little activity. There's no prepositions that go after it, for example. Okay, good. And again, it's psoriasis. And I know that because I Googled it and I got the recording. Okay, so I guess I'd just like to stress to you now that to find those great discipline specific words and to use them in your writing, you must read. And I want to encourage you today and remind you, and I have this in other workshops, you do reading and writing, they come together. It's not reading or writing. As you're reading, you need to write, okay? And I want to encourage you to read as a writer. When you're reading those wonderful articles with this fantastic vocabulary, you're able to take that word, take their style, take their structure and emulate it in your own writing, okay? It's not plagiarism. It's absolutely fine to take a word. Obviously, you can't copy and paste, but you emulate the style in your own writing. Okay. Something else to do is to look at exemplars. So that is something you can ask your supervisors about, and I strongly encourage you to look at any exemplars that your peers may suggest or your supervisors suggest, because it can help you with your word choices as well for your discipline specific vocabulary. The good thing about exemplars is they highlight quality work, but they can also highlight poor style. I know for me personally, I love to use exemplars because more than anything, they reduce my anxiety. So I know what's expected, okay? I'd like to encourage you to practice noticing, making judgments. And it's not just about the content of what you read, but as I mentioned earlier, it's the mechanics of the writing, the word choice, the flow. Also check whether there's a thread between the research problem and also the value of the research. I want to stress that noticing the way researchers in your field write is very important because it's going to help you improve your writing. So if you haven't already, send your supervisors an email and say, I'm really interested in finding an example of my methods chapter. Do you have any good theses that you would recommend? If they're not able to do that, you can go to our repository, which is QUT ePrints. You just have to type QUT ePrints and you'll get this. You can narrow your search down if you know the title, if you know the author, and any keywords, it will help you as well. Really important to do that. And I also encourage you to read your own supervisor's writing as well. Let me see how many people here. So of the 15 people here, how many of you, put your hand up, have or haven't read? No, let's say have. I have read my supervisor's thesis before. Oh, good. Yes, okay. It's actually amazing how many people don't. Okay, good. So if you are one of them, please seek it out. And again, someone else has mentioned, Michael has mentioned that he's read their papers. That's great as well. Go and have a look at their papers. That's okay, Udari. We all need to be reminded of these things. So go and have a look at that. All right. So now we're going to talk about gendered language. English has obviously changed since the Declaration of Independence was written, as you can see here. Most readers no longer understand the word man to be synonymous with person. So clear communication requires writers to be more precise. I would advise you to avoid using gendered language and try to get that more gender neutral language, because I think that's the standard now in academic writing. Sometimes gendered language is unavoidable when you're quoting someone, if they have gendered language in the quote. Also, if your research focuses on men or women or compares the two groups. So I think this is just in general. And I thought I should touch on that today. I have this is from the United Nations site, and that's a clickable link. When I send the slides out to you, you can click on that. This is information on inclusive language that they have. I guess tackling gendered references in your writing can be challenging, especially since there isn't, and they may never be, a universally agreed upon set of concrete guidelines. But, you know, it's something to think about anyway, and have a discussion with your supervisors if you are unsure. I remember Michael said, interesting that actor for all genders is an exception compared to other terms. Yeah, that's right. Actor, actress isn't used anymore. I used to really enjoy teaching my children this when they were growing up as well. It's not policeman, it's police officer, or it's not mailman, it's mail carrier. You know, it's funny how, but the interesting thing is, and it's true of all countries, language is living, it changes. The words that you use are not the same as what your grandparents use. And my children, I have an 18-year-old and a 15-year-old, and sometimes they are speaking a different language. Today, my daughter said, I'm making bank today. And I had no idea what she was talking about, but it basically means I'm making a lot of money today. So, you know, that's what language is as well. And we are trying to have more gender inclusive language. All right, so let's move along now to slang. So we have slang, colloquial language, and jargon. So the lines that separate slang, colloquialism, and jargon sometimes are a little unclear, given that each of these is considered informal and typically is specific to a certain area or a group. So I'll see if I can make it clearer. So slang is language used by specific or certain group, and they have this language in order to establish a group identity and sometimes to exclude outsiders. So we have, for example, frenemy, a bromance, okay, ginormous. These are some examples of slang. Then we have colloquial language. So they are informal words, phrases, or sayings that are often specific to one geographical area, and they're typically only used in informal settings. And the reason I'm telling you these terms is because these do not belong in your writing, okay? Jargon, it's also called lingo, and it's defined as language used by a specific professional or interest group. Again, it's not used so much in your writing, and please don't confuse it with that discipline-specific vocabulary that we were talking about as well. So I have a few examples here. So I want you to help me avoid the slang, colloquial language, and jargon in these sentences. So the first one, all right, are you ready? I want you to replace the word in bold here. So the first sentence is, the supervisor reckons the student is well informed. How can we change reckons? Good. Okay, great. How about the next one? The method was a little bit tricky to accomplish. Good, good, good. Challenging, difficult, complicated. Well done. The next one. The experiment was conducted 24/7. Okay, good. Udari's written one. Has anyone else got an idea? Oh, okay. It could be over a 24-hour period. Week around. Yes, so see, this is why we want the specificity of your experiment. How long was it? What time was it? You know, you always need to be very clear and precise. We could even say non-stop, like it really requires more information. And then we have the last one, jargon. A number of financial heavyweights concur. What's a good word for good? Experts. Michael's got experts in the field. Great. Well done, professionals. So hopefully that's just giving you some food for thought when you're doing your own writing. Have a think about it. Are you using slang? Are you using colloquial language and jargon? We want discipline-specific words. Okay. Let's move along to capitalization, punctuation, and spelling. So I wanted to show you this list. So this is by Clinton Golding. Golding's presented this advice for you. So there's 10 points, and it's really interesting. It's advice based on what examiners do. And next year, I'm actually planning a workshop on common errors according to examiners. So I'm really excited to have that as a new workshop next time. Really great list, but I wanted to highlight number 5. Examiners are irritated and distracted by presentation errors. That could mean, you know, full stops, capital letters, spelling. You know, it's really your job to make sure that that is perfect before you submit anything. Okay, so just a broad overview, and I know this is basic information and a lot of you know that, so we'll just go through it quickly. Capitals need to be at the start of a sentence or in a heading. When we're using a proper noun, we capitalize as well. So I've given some examples. If you look at physics or the physics department, so it's a group, it's a proper noun, so I've got a capital here. When you're describing an item identified by the number, you put a capital. The next figure is a small f, but figure 2 is a capital F as well. Really, I think I have a list here later where you can go for citation rules. Specific words, names of days, obviously Sunday, months, adjectives or nationality, they need to be capitalized. Please make sure you get that correct. But we do not initial capitals for common words. So if you have finite element method, it's not finite element method with capital F, E, and M. Mass spectrometry is not with a capital M and a capital S. This is really common, actually. I see so many people, they capitalize words that are not meant to be capitalized. So just think about that when you're writing as well. Punctuation. Hopefully you guys are good with your commas and your full stops, but we have things like hyphens. We do not use a hyphen with a prefix. Remember, we were talking about prefixes before. Sabine saying Germans capitalize all nouns. And Sabine, if your research is on Germany, this is something that you need to talk to your supervisors about. I'm giving you general information, and I hope I am outlining a few exceptions. But yes, it's important that you at least consider this information and have that conversation with your supervisors. We use a hyphen to separate vowels that would otherwise be read together, as in pre-embryo. So you can see the 2 vowels here, E and E. So we put a hyphen there, or when the original word is written with a capital. We insert a comma between the subject of the main clause and whatever comes in front of it. Surprisingly, comma, and then you have the rest of the sentence. However, very soon I'm going to talk to you about not using words like surprisingly in your writing because it's emotive. When we're separating items, red, comma, white, comma, and blue. I don't always put a comma after the white, and I think that's a preference. So you can decide whether you do that or not. If you're having 2 items, there's no comma. If you're putting a list, you can use the same punctuation as you would in a normal text, but you could consider dropping the word and. So we have the sentence is the system is fast, comma, flexible, comma, and reliable. So in the list, they have the commas. I actually don't like to put the commas in my list. So sometimes that's a preference as well. Michael's just in the chat asked me, should he put a comma after the however? And the answer is absolutely yes. You need to have the comma there because the I is the start of your next clause. That's the subject of your clause. Okay, so you absolutely need to. So many people get it wrong. You have no idea how frustrating it is for me. And my children hate to show me their homework because they know I'm going to be really fussy about the commas. If you are interested, I have a workshop, Common Writing Errors, and I actually talk to you about the 4 sentence types in English. We have simple sentences, compound, complex, and compound complex. And these, if you understand how to organize the clauses and the dependent clauses and independent clauses, you'll have an idea about where to put in commas. It can be really helpful. Spelling. Okay, I'm not going to go into it. Get your spelling right, okay? Because as we learned from Clinton Golding, your examiners are irritated by these presentation errors. Okay, once again, I will be sending these slides out, and these are all clickable links with information on APA referencing. You, as a researcher, this is a skill. You need to know it and you need to get it right. Oops, sorry. There are QUT has SiteWrite as well in the library, which is amazing and wonderful. But I actually find sometimes you need to check it again. So just be aware that there may be some anomalies. All right, phrasal verbs. I think this one's so interesting. I'm going to read this out, the little picture I have there. So this is from Thomas Jefferson. The most valuable of all talents is that of never using 2 words when one will do. So hopefully you're going to leave the workshop today and you're going to remember this. Basically, phrasal verbs are those idiomatic phrases that consist of a verb and another element. So we're going to, for example, look up, look into, look around, okay? Look after, okay, great. So, and in English, we use them so often, and to become a native speaker, it's really important that you understand phrasal verbs, and they can be so confusing because we do use them a lot in everyday spoken English. If you are a student of English, using phrasal verbs will actually make you sound fluent, okay? They're very acceptable in spoken English, and I'd actually even suggest here that in your presentations, it's easier to use them there than in your writing, because in writing, they're considered too informal because they often have multiple meanings. Okay, you have to remember that academic writing is precise and clear. So I have a couple here. So we have go up, means rise or increase. Put into can mean contribute, and then all of these others. So I would really encourage you, after today's session, look at your writing. I mean, if you have 2 screens and you're able to do it now, think about that. When you're writing, do you lean on phrasal verbs? Because we often do. So it's not that you can't use them, but I would advise you to try, and as Thomas Jefferson said, use one. What's the one word academic alternative to that phrasal verb that you're using? So I thought we would have a little play. Let's try the first one. Researchers looked at the results. What's a one-word alternative? Good, beautiful. Look how amazing. Great examples. Okay, great. How about the scientist carried out the experiment, conducted, performed. Great, beautiful, beautiful. Last one. There was lots of evidence. Much, ample, much. Lots of has no place in your writing. Good. Yes, a huge amount is fine as well. And I want to say, you know, this is my opinion of, you know, being an academic writing teacher for more time than I want to admit to you here. And I just find that if you are able to find the one word academic alternative, usually it's a better word, it's clear, it's more precise, and it's just going to make your writing sound beautiful and academic. So someone just asked me about plenty. Plenty usually comes with of, plenty of. So that again is like a phrasal verb. Okay, we'll keep going. I'm glad that you guys are being interactive with me. All right, so cut out. Oh my goodness, how amazing is this word? Look at all the different meanings it has. The irrelevant paragraph was cut out, which means deleted or removed. The DNA model was cut out using scissors. Cut out with scissors. She was not cut out for the task. She was not suitable or not equipped. The engine cut out, ceased operating. Group 2 had sugar cut out of their diet. Can you see how confusing that can be? So choose the one word academic alternative to make your writing precise and just beautiful to read. All right, let's move along. So I'm moving along to something that I hope is easy and everybody knows, just to remind you of it. We use contractions in speech, but it's only used in informal forms of writing. So a contraction is did not would become didn't. Okay, cannot is can't. So please avoid contractions in your writing. Remember that academic writing is formal. So the first one, the research didn't yield any positive results. You need to put did not. Hopefully this is easy and all of you know this, so I'll just move along. Next, we're going to talk about abbreviations and acronyms. So beware of overusing abbreviations, especially your acronyms. So obviously, I have an incorrect sentence to start off with. The uni provides support to HDR students. Sometimes we don't even realize that we're using this informal language. So we don't use them. We don't put approx or appointment or apartment or ESD, none of that. Acronyms are acceptable. So acronyms are those words formed from the initial letters of other words and then they're pronounced as a word. For example, WHO, United Nations, UN, NASA, IT, FIFA, my son's favorite word, AIDS. Okay, so this is great. This is fine. Obviously, in your own writing, firstly, I need to say to you, the first time you write an acronym like WHO, it's really important that you write the entire phrase, World Health Organization. And then in brackets, you put the acronym. I think it's funny because sometimes acronyms are so embedded in our everyday life that we actually forget what it even stands for. How many of you have been guilty of going, what does FIFA stand for? You may have never known. In your thesis, you're going to have your own unique acronyms. Let me know if you do. How many of you people here today have your own acronyms in your writing? Okay, good. Would you like to tell me what they are? You can write the word and then what's the acronym that you use. I remember once I was reading a student's writing and it was, his acronym was climate change. Oh, here we have cross-curriculum priority, CCP, good. SOC, what does SOC mean in your essay? Or MTH, what do they mean? Soil organic carbon, okay, good. It's really important that you remind your reader throughout, not just at the beginning. I would suggest that, okay, good. I would suggest that you remind your readers at the start of your chapters. Hopefully your chapters have a nice little introductory paragraph. It's just important. You don't have to say, oh, I'm using the acronym. You can just write it in full once and then put it in brackets again. And the reason for that is often when your thesis is being examined, not every examiner will start at chapter 1. Some may start at chapter 3 or in the conclusion chapter. We don't know where they're going to start. And so you need to have that beautiful coherence in your document. It does sound repetitive, but it's a really good idea to do that. Francisco, I agree with you. Francisco's saying he doesn't like acronyms in papers because you have to keep going back. And sometimes I find it frustrating. I had a student once who I think the acronym was climate change. And for me, it was such a simple idea that I got distracted every time I saw CC because I was like, oh, what is that again? What is, sometimes if it's an easy word, you may not need to have an acronym. If it's a very complicated phrase, think about it again, have a discussion, think about it, talk to your supervisors. So I have an example here. GMP, we all know means, what do we know GMP means? Thanks, Michael, gross national product. But, oh my goodness. Francisco says, I'm working in yeast metabolism. So you got your glue to the TCA and then, I can't even read it. But yes, exactly. So GNP here, we all know means gross national product. And a student might be using it for gold nanoparticles. So it's really important sometimes to make sure that your acronyms, think of the possible extensions that they may have, and then perhaps choose an acronym that doesn't confuse the reader, if that makes sense. Remember, your acronyms need to be in uppercase as well. And again, remind your reader systematically throughout your document what they are. Okay, all right, that's enough. Let's talk quickly about writing numbers. Important. All right, I've got a whole little section here. So in general, if you're talking about 0 to 9, we usually write it in words. Okay, so we write 2 hours, TWO, because it's before it's until 9. You write it out in a word form. Multi-digit, if it's 10 or above, we usually use the numeral form, 24, 24. If you're using them with abbreviated units, we use a numeral. We use numerals with dates and times to identify figures and other items. We use numerals when numbers are mixed with larger numbers. So 3, 7, and 24. So you use numerals for all of them, even though number 3 and number 7 are under 9. And as I said, words for numbers above 10 if they come at the beginning of a sentence. So if you're putting 2008 as the year, you don't put the numerals 2008. It needs to be in word form. Or if you find yourself in a situation where you've got this numeral and you don't want to write it out in word form, what you could do is just change the sentence completely, and it starts now the year 2008, and then that makes it easier to read as well. Okay, they should be really easy for you. All right, well, moving along now to subjective and emotional language. So as I said to you, it's important to avoid overly emotive language. At the beginning, I talked to you about the fact that writing is formal, it's objective. So I have some examples of overly emotive language. So if we look at number 1, Smith's contribution to the experiment is extremely important. You know what? The word extremely is redundant. You don't need it. Important is important. So we tend not to find these words in writing. It doesn't mean that they're not out there. They are, but this is just my my advice to you. Sentence number 2. Unfortunately, comma, Michael, the data cannot be used because, we don't put that subjective emotive language there. Okay. Again, the data was frustrating. The report revealed outrageous. It's too emotive. We need to find other words to instead. Do I have? Okay. So here's some poor examples just to recap this whole section. Okay, so I think showing you what not to write can actually help you. So here we have some slang. The method was a little bit tricky to accomplish. So this is a no. There was lots of evidence. Again, no. Group 2 had sugar cut out of their diet. So that's a phrasal verb. Unfortunately, that's an emotive language. The data was frustrating, again, emotive. And the research didn't, that's a contraction. So these are the things that you want to avoid in your writing. All right, so now we're going to talk about academic reporting verbs. So part of your job as the HDR student is to refer to the research of others. And we call this secondary sources. And in order to do that, you need a reporting verb. So it's a word that is used to talk about or report on other people's work. Reporting verbs can be used to great effect, but the difficulty with using them is that there are many, and each of them has a slightly different and often subtle meaning. So it's really important that you get the verb right. Okay, so, that's everything I've just said. You're required to comment on someone's work, agree or disagree, evaluate people's ideas. So these verbs indicate the author's viewpoint or your viewpoint or the author's viewpoint regarding other literature. Okay, so I have, this is again a clickable link where we talk about reporting verbs. There's a weak reporting verb, there's a neutral position, and there's also a stronger position. That's a little bit blurry, isn't it? Sorry about that. So it's important for you to know which verb to choose, which one. Is it weak? Is it strong? Do we want to look at, for example, if we look at disagreement and questioning, if you look at that down the left column, the third point, if you go to the stronger position, look at those verbs: accuses, attacks, complains, contradicts. These are really strong reporting verbs. If you go to the weaker position, doubts, questions, okay? So don't just write a verb, really think about it. It's going to make your writing stand out and be precise and clear. All right. Something else I'd like to talk to you about, which I find extremely interesting, and I read this in an article written by Kamler and Thompson. And this is what so many students do. You describe, and this is going to be in my new writing circle on common errors by examiners. So many examiners and supervisors will say, stop describing. You describe. You need to critically analyze the literature that you're writing. So instead of contribute, suggest, what's happening is here, the student is becoming an invisible scholar, okay? So if you look at these examples and my 3 points, there's a lack of connection syntactically between the sentences. It looks like a list and a summary. What you need to do is make that evaluative sense and not be the invisible scholar. Use your critical voice, okay? And it's just to remind you here, and I use these slides in other workshops, as a writer, in your research, you're becoming the expert. You need to have that depth of knowledge, and you need to have that critical voice. Don't be an invisible scholar and hide behind all the literature that you're reading. Analyze it, critically analyze the literature. You're engaging with that literature, okay? Don't express your own ideas, but do it as a response to what others have said. Contribute to the literature. So you're joining in that conversation in your discipline, and ultimately, which is the whole reason you're doing your HDR degree anyway, is that you are advancing and contributing to new knowledge. Okay, that's why you're here. Is the word suggests? Oh, where would? Oh no. Oh wait, I'm where does it say, did I have suggests as a, no, I'm who's writing to me here? I'm not saying, oh, it's Michael. Absolutely. You can use the word suggest, but you need to, so you're saying this author suggests this, and then you need to analyze, what do you think of this suggestion, or what do you think they think of this suggestion? And you need to analyze it as well. I love the word suggest. You can use the word suggest, but don't just hide behind it and say Hopkins suggests this, and then don't have any input on why you think Hopkins said it. You need to go deeper, okay, and be, oh goodness, and be that. I've lost my slide. You need to be that person who's contributing to the literature. Oh, you know what? I actually think I may have deleted the slide. That's weird. Did I? Oh, I did. I think I deleted it. Sorry, I'm not sure what's happening. Okay, we'll keep going. Am I in the right part? Okay. Next, we're going to talk about wordiness. Who's guilty? Who's guilty of writing too much? Yes, we all are. We're all guilty. The academic word is prolixity. It's when speech or writing contains too many words. It's tediously lengthy. So it's a common error of students. And I think not only is the sentence too long, it's using too many complex words as well. You're trying to be fancy, you're trying to show off, but you're just writing something that isn't clear and doesn't really make sense. Even the supervisors will say to me, when I'm meeting a supervisor student in a one-to-one capacity, they'll say, the student is too many wordy sentences, please help them. Please help them to be concise, because concise writing is that key to clear communication. If your sentences are wordy, it's going to obscure your ideas and it's going to frustrate your readers. I used to say to my students to remember the acronym KISS, K-I-S-S. Keep it simple, stupid. Just keep it simple. All right, there's an acronym for you. So things that you can avoid are some formulaic phrases like these here. Sometimes we overuse our relative pronouns, the who, the which, and the that. We don't need to say them, actually. It just makes your writing, wordy. Long sentences, we're going to talk about that in a moment. Also, doubling up of words. Just to remind you, you don't need to. You can choose one. Mutual agreement. Just use agreement. Future prospects. Reconsider again. You don't need to have both, okay? So just choose one. Here's some more redundant pairs. It's something that we're used to, I think, and it's sometimes unlearning bad habits. So I think this is just something to keep in mind. All right, what to do with very long sentences? Well, I can't make it clearer than this. I went to a workshop with Inga Mewburn, and I mentioned this in other workshops. She's the author of The Thesis Whisperer. And so she suggests that a word should be no longer than 50 words. I'm just going to actually put in the chat a link to her stuff because she's got some great stuff. And this is what I do when I'm with a student in a one-to-one capacity and I'm seeing these really long sentences and my brain's getting tired because I'm trying to concentrate on what the topic is. I read it aloud with the student, and then when I feel my voice is trying to pause or take a breath, that's the point where that sentence needs to be stopped, and then you can start a new sentence and have that, the word family connection, or however you get that cohesion with the two sentences. Oh, great. Michael's saying he uses the method now. Cut it down, make the sentence better. The breath thing is really useful. It really is. And you need to remember, you have to think of your reader. You're so involved in your data and your information that it's if you have a 7-line sentence, it is too long. Okay. So she says, Inga Mewburn says 50 words. I'm not going to give you a number. That's her number, but I think that's probably about right. So I'll give you an example. This is an example of a really long sentence, and it's not just long, it's really wordy. It doesn't make sense. You know, I can't, my brain just goes fuzzy trying to read it. So as I mentioned to you before, knowing the sentence types in English can help you with your commas, but also help you to know when to stop, you know. Here I have 3 examples. I've color coded them according to clauses, dependent clauses or independent clauses, and I'm not going to go into that now, but you can see they're easier to read. It's easier for a reader, it helps your writing flow, and we don't need to be fancy, you just need to make it clear. All right, you will get these slides. Something else that you can do is read it aloud. Microsoft Word has a function, we can get the computer to read it for you, so that's something else that you can do as well. Go to review and click on read aloud if you're not aware of that. Okay, personal pronouns. This is an interesting topic. So personal pronouns are I, me, my, you, your, us, ours, okay? And in the past, I've been this staunch advocate of never using personal pronouns, but in actual fact, it's not true. When you're writing a thesis, if you're writing a practice-led thesis, is anybody writing practice-led, or do I have any qualitative researchers out there? Okay, good. So have you had the conversation with your supervisors about personal pronouns? Good. And the consensus is it's fine. Is that right? Good. I think I'm just gonna have to, yes, and not only fine, but necessary. So I've been thinking about this slide a lot. Personal pronouns, depending on, and the next slide will give you more information, depending whether you're practice-led or if you're a qualitative researcher. In fact, many supervisors insist on you using them. There are phrases, however, like, in my opinion, I think you can see they're not necessary and should not be in your academic writing. If you are using personal pronouns in your writing, I would also encourage you to use them sparingly though. So qualitative researchers, I've had a couple of supervisors contact me recently and they said, all good qualitative researchers use personal pronouns. It's a mistake to do anything else as it moves against the epistemological assumptions of the approach. And most qualitative work has epistemological underpinnings that require first person. So it could be the theory that, so here's an example of sociological theory and some information about objectivating yourself as the theory. And so in order to do that, you need to use personal pronouns. I'll move to the next slide. This was also suggested to me. Where is my notes? I can't remember. Oh, it's Jane Gilgan's paper, and there's a link to the paper as well. Sometimes when people aren't using the personal pronouns, they're in this really distant language. And so if they're used to the third person, it's like they're not part of the research. So if you look at the unfortunately part, unfortunately, such styles of writing not only silence their informants and themselves, but also they contradict philosophies, blah, 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 blah. So personal pronouns are a topic for you to talk to your supervisors about. And I think it really does depend on what kind of research you're doing. All right, starter phrases. I had someone once say to me that the next advice I'm going to give them, they use this right throughout their HDR journey. And and they've put this, as a pin, they've pinned it in their taskbar because using a starter phrase can just help you start writing. Let me just see this topic. Christine, your guidance, the balance. Yeah, good. I'm glad that's helpful. If you overuse it as well, constantly, I think it takes away from the academic style. So having a nice balance. All right, so these starter phrases. This is the Manchester Phrase Bank. Oh no, I don't have a link I can put into the chat for you, but again, this is a clickable link that you'll get later. Do you guys know this? Have you heard of the Manchester Phrase Bank? Michael's highly recommending it. Good. It just helps you. I've got some examples actually. It just helps you when you're stuck, or just how to keep going. So here's an example of if you need to highlight inadequacy of a previous study. So look at these beautiful sentence starters. Previous studies of blah have not dealt with blah, 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 and then you can keep going. It's not plagiarism because you're going to create your own sentences. Introduction. Look at these sentence starters. Even if you don't take it completely, it may trigger an idea for you to use yourself. Methods. So many choices. Literature review. Look at this. There has been relatively little literature published on blah, blah, blah. And then you need to say, here, this is your opportunity to say, this research contributes to the literature. It's beneficial. And who's it beneficial? Always mention the stakeholders, who's going to benefit as well. Paula, I don't think I understand what you mean. You say book is better for critical thinking.
Oh, I'm sorry. What I meant is that in the book that I was recommended lately, that is called I Say, You Say, what it does is that it gives you all these skeletons that you can use to actually write your thesis. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. So it's a book titled I Say, You Say.
Yes, yes. I will write now the proper name in the chat.
And this is, I'm going to now go and look at this book as well. It's so important that we share and know that. And, it's really important. Look here, I'll show you. I have gone to the library and I have books. I have books on academic writing. I have books on what I'm learning. You need to go, you need to read books. You don't need to physically get them. You can read them online, but critical thinking is probably the number one. This is especially for thesis writing. Your ultimate job is contributing to a gap. And if you just describe and talk about it and you don't critically think, critically analyze, you're going to have huge problems at the end. And it can be very upsetting and scary if you have to go back through an entire document and go, have I really engaged critically with the literature here? So thank you for recommending that. I'm going to have a look at that one myself. All right, so we're moving along. It's now 2:22. We're going to talk about active voice versus passive voice. I could spend a whole hour on this topic, so I'm going to try and keep it as brief as possible. When I say, oh, wonderful, thank you so much. Paula's just put a link for the book there. I wonder if the QT library has it as well. We might all be fighting for the book now. Okay, so do you guys know what active versus passive means? What's active voice? What's passive voice? Okay. I might just give you a hint. Okay, who is this, guys? Who's that? Oops. Who's this person? Yay. Thank you. This is William Shakespeare. Okay, what about this? If that's Shakespeare, what do you guess this is? Or who are they? Yes, Romeo and Juliet. I have been to Verona and written on the wall there. This is actually not Prince Charming. This is Romeo and Juliet, although he was Juliet's Prince Charming. Okay, so I'm just going to give you a very, very quick grammar lesson. So an active voice is this. Shakespeare wrote Romeo and Juliet. So Shakespeare is my subject. Then we have wrote, which is the simple past verb. We have Romeo and Juliet, and that's my object. Okay, easy. That's my active sentence. Then we have the passive sentence. So I've taken my object, which is Romeo and Juliet. Now I put it at the start of my sentence. So Romeo and Juliet, and instead of wrote, I now have was written. So was written, it's the, oh my goodness, I've suddenly forgotten the past participle verb. Is that right? So the be verb changes, and now I've put the subject at the end. So this is called the passive. Okay, easy, easy. Shakespeare wrote Romeo and Juliet, or Romeo and Juliet was written by Shakespeare. So have any of you out there had a conversation with your supervisor about using active or using passive? Have they said anything to you? Don't do it. It's such a controversial topic, I think, with many supervisors. Who says to you, don't use passive voice? I think there's a tendency for supervisors to not like the passive voice. I would suggest that even though the passive voice is acceptable, and I'm going to say that again, you can use it, you shouldn't overuse it though. Really, it's important that you identify whether you want to focus on the result of the action or the person or the people doing the action. So if you look at the example here, so my active sentence is scientists classify glass as a solid. Okay, my passive is glass is classified as a solid. So here, the passive sentence, it's focusing on how glass is classified, and it doesn't matter about the scientist. The scientist is not the focus. So that's why we're using the passive in this sentence, okay? The problem with the passive is it can make the writing confusing because you need to change the verb. Instead of classify, we use is classified, and changing the verb. But this is a simple sentence. When it's a difficult sentence, it can be confusing. There's more words than in an active sentence, and it can be confusing. I would suggest the passive is also used to avoid personal pronouns. Sometimes it's when the action is obvious or if the person doing the action is irrelevant. Okay, so we use the passive voice in academic writing to talk about procedures and processes, focus on the action and to avoid talking about the doer, sometimes to avoid repetition, or as I said, when the doer is obvious, unknown, or even insignificant. So here we go. Active or passive. When you're choosing between them, consider above everything what you are discussing, what's your topic, and place it in the subject position. So if you look at this sentence, these two sentences, the first one, the preprocessor sorts the two arrays, okay? Or the two arrays are sorted by the preprocessor. So in the first sentence, what's the topic? How do I know what the author is really interested in? Well, in the first sentence, it's the preprocessor that does the sorting. That's right. But in the second sentence, it's not the preprocessor. I'm not so interested. In the second sentence, it's the arrays that is the topic. So when you're thinking about using a passive sentence, yes, it changes the focus completely. So you need to decide what is your topic and put that. I would suggest put that in your the place of your subject. Okay. I guess I will leave by saying that the active voice, use the active when you can. I don't think it's wrong to use passive voice, But as I said, they do use more words. They sometimes can be vague, and they actually can lead to a tangle of prepositional phrases. So it's really important to think about that. And you may have a supervisor who hates them. So now you know what they are. All right, we're moving on to cliches and idioms. All right, so here are some common cliches and idioms. So cliche is a phrase or opinion, and it's overused and indicates a lack of original thought. So generally in English, we avoid cliches because the lack of originality. But then we have idioms. An idiom is a fixed phrase or an expression that has a figurative meaning. So we have here the bottom line, older but wiser, in this day and age. Look at the picture I had before this. He's over the moon. Over the moon means, you know, in love. Okay. So in general, I want to say that in general, because I've had an interesting conversation with the supervisor recently. In general, in English, we find we want to avoid cliches and idioms. However, different cultures may use idioms as a sign of cultivation and erudition. So I'll just give you an example. Sometimes I'll introduce you to the concept of pluriculturality. It's been suggested to me, and I actually wholeheartedly agree, that idioms not using idioms is actually a Western convention in academic writing. And one of the supervisors I spoke to recently told me about a Chinese student that she had, and she in fact encouraged her Chinese students to allow that literary scholarliness to come through, because in China, for example, using idioms is the mark of an educated person, and there's lots of classical idioms as well. So I'd like to leave you with that as well. And I think it's a lesson for me to know that if I stand here and say, don't use cliches and idioms, it's not always culturally consistent. Okay. All right, then we come down to something called nominalization. So nominalization basically means taking a verb, adjective, or an adverb and turning it into a noun. So you have to change the form of the verb, and you also change the position in the sentence, and then possibly change other words in the sentence too. So I'll give you an example. All right, here we have this sentence. Another positive factor is the fact that this can be used to reduce pollution. That's 14 words in this sentence. It's quite sort of difficult to say. So instead of reduce, I'm taking this and I've made it into a noun. The reduction in pollution is another positive factor. We use normalizations to make texts impersonal, formal, academic. We focus on concepts, not actions. It also helps us to avoid repetition. You can concentrate all that information into one sentence. We use complex noun phrases instead of simple phrases or objects. And again, it's that precision that we're looking for. In order to create nominalization in your words, you actually need to know your word forms. And that comes back to that academic word list. You need to know that allocate is a verb, allocation is the noun, and so on. All right, we're heading to a part which I really love teaching generally. And again, it's probably something I could spend a long time on, and it's called parallelism. So parallelism is, it means the words that you choose are same form and they're moving in the same direction. So your grammar has to be correct and the same, and it helps your writing to flow. So when we talk about a parallel structure, it's two or more words, a phrase, a clause that have a similar length and grammatical form. So I'm going to give you some examples. All right, if we look at these sentences, I'll read the first one. HDR students require resilience, to be patient, and professional. What do you think? Does this sentence, this first sentence, does that sound parallel to you? What's the problem here? It doesn't, does it, Michael? And that's because, you know, we can get a sense of, oh, it doesn't sound right. That's because resilience is a noun. To be patient is using my infinitive, and professional is an adjective. So they're not parallel. If you look at the next one, resilience, patience, professionalism. Remember we were talking before about those prefixes and suffixes. So ENCE, resilience, ence, and patience. I know that the word ending, these suffixes are nouns. And ism, I know that professionalism is a noun. So I know that this is a beautiful parallel sentence. Next, I can have good lighting. That's a noun phrase. A spacious desk, another noun phrase. And a comfortable chair. It's beautiful. They're parallel. They're all the same. Okay. And then the last one. The benefits of studying in Australia include the high quality education system, comma, the friendly people, comma, and the standard of living. Can you see how all of these start with the as well? They're a similar length. They're not, the middle one's not really, really long. And then the third one's short. You know, you need to have some beautiful parallel style. Is this making sense to you all?
Yes.
Great. This is a really common problem in writing. When I sit with a student in one-to-one capacity, I read their sentence and you know, I might be sitting there, you know, thinking, oh, how can I change this? It's because it's not parallel. So you need to go back and look at your writing and make sure you have a parallel structure. It doesn't just have to be as simple as I talked about. Let's see what Sabine said. I think, oh, Sabine, I've lost the first sentence have a different meaning. The reason that the first sentence is different is because it's incorrect, I think, or it's difficult to understand. I think the first sentence is meant to be when I wrote this, it's meant to be the second one. Okay, Francisco, in Spanish, we never put a comma before and, oh, well, that's hard, isn't it? Because in English, you must, if it's a new, oh, it depends. Are you talking about and for a list, Francisco, or are you talking about with an independent clause? Because if you're going, let me think. I like to drink tea, comma, and I like to eat scones. They're two independent clauses because there's two subjects. I need an and, I need a comma before my and. But if it's a list, oh, in this fourth example here, yeah, I don't personally like a comma before the and either, but I think that's up to you. Paula's saying in poetry is enumeration. Francisco, is what common in English? Oh. Don't worry too much, Sabine, about the meaning. I just want you to have a look at the word form. Oh, okay. You guys are all writing to me as I'm talking to the air. Yes. I also don't put a comma before the your example, your black here, but yeah, you can. Okay. All right. Thanks, everyone. Okay, so we can have a parallel structure for infinitive phases, for the ing form, for both an and, okay? To improve, to develop, playing, watching, eating. If you look at the ing form, you know, this is where I see so often someone will have an ing and then they won't have an ing here and they will have an ing. And obviously the sentence I'm providing you today are simple because for the sake of looking at it together. But when you have those really complicated data set, you know, really long, complex sentences, you need to sometimes really just consider, oh, should that be an ing? And you have to find that parallelism in the writing. All right. Not only, but also this is a beautiful parallel structure. Don't forget the comma has to come. Clauses, you know, we can have clauses, main clauses, dependent clauses, and they can still be parallel as well. Oh, thanks, Chanel. It has a name, the Oxford comma. So that means it's common in Britain. Is that right, Chanel? Okay. If you look at the example B here, this is a dependent clause. If blah, 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 and if blah, 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 comma, and then you have your independent clause at the end. So you can have these beautiful parallel structures, but you need to make sure that they're correct. All right, repetition. I think repetition is great. And so often my students will say to me, oh, but I've already said that. And do I need to say that again? Part of writing a thesis is showing the repetition. You know, we were talking about before having your acronyms written out fully in each chapter. Again, that's often you may think it's repetitive, but it's just what we do. And it's really important that throughout your document, you repeat your research questions, you know, not directly, but you refer to them. You restate your questions in your conclusion, and you refer to your key variables or your themes all the way throughout. Have that lovely balance, but that's what your coherence is as well. If anyone out there is doing a thesis by publication, it's really important that you make sure that each paper is really beautifully connected through as well. And you do that through repetition as well. All right, in down to the sentence level, we have an example of repetition, which can give you some great cohesion. Again, this is a word family one, the same example. All right, and then we'll get to synonyms. Synonyms are, you know, the vocab. Because today is talking about vocab, we need to remember to use synonyms because they can help with your cohesion. I'm resting my voice, so I'll let you read that out. To find synonyms, you can either right-click on the word in the Word document and it'll take you down to a list. Make sure you check the meaning, the dictionary meaning of the word, because they're not always going to be the right context for you. Also use the thesaurus.com. Dictionary.com can help you find the meaning of a word as well. All right. Subheadings. I've added subheadings in today's workshop just because I think they're a really great way for you to get that beautiful coherence, the connection of, as we said, your research questions, your research aim, your scope throughout. And I often find students misuse the subheadings. They, like I've got an example here. My subheading is 3.2, okay? Research design framework. So of A and B, which one do you think is the best sentence that should go immediately after this subheading? Yeah, it's B. But it's amazing how many people might give me some little bit of background. You know, when I'm reading it, they say to me, oh, but hang on, Tasha, I'm going to get to the research design framework soon. I'm just building up to it. I'm providing you some background. What happens is the reader's lost. The reader wants you to tell them, connect that subheading to the sentence. It doesn't have to be a complete repetition. It could be a synonym, but it needs to directly connect to that subheading. We're anticipating that as a reader. So don't write a subheading and then get to it, 2 paragraphs later. I think that's a real problem. Because it's your reader, and remember, your readers are your examiners and your supervisors and your experts. So they want you to guide them. So I just thought I'd include that to remind you, choose repetition or synonyms in your subheadings as well. All right, transition signals. I do not know why I have to keep telling people about this. Transition signals have lots of different names. We call them signposts, connectors, discourse markers, linking words. They are so useful, and it's surprising to me how many people forget to use them. So on the HDR Blackboard site, I have, I've just taken a little snippet of a document that I've created, and we use transition signals for addition, for chronological order, contrast, summary, reason, result, cause, effect, example, and condition. They really help you, they help the reader, they help cohesion in your document. Have a look today when you finish. Do you use them? And if you don't, why not? You should. Don't overly use them because, again, you need that nice balance. But, they are a really great way to get cohesion. All right, so we're going to end now with a list of words I don't like. So these are the vocabulary no-nos, according to Tasha. There may be others, but I'll give you a sort of a reasoning as to why. Okay, so the word good, I think, is not good because it's vague. Can you think of another word that we could use for good? More specific word? This was a good experiment. Good. There's words like significant, positive, beneficial. You're really right, Francisco. It does depend on the context, and that's so important. So that's why we choose an adjective, not good, that it doesn't mean you can't use good, because I have used good, myself in writing journal articles, but you need to think about the context. Paramount again, the context will determine the word that you replace good with. How about bad? Just throw out some words there. Good. Negative. I'll give you some, okay? Poor, deficient, inadequate, dissatisfactory. If you have a more succinct word, it's going to help your reader know precisely what you mean by bad. Nice as well. I hate the word nice. Superior, fair, commendable, favorable. Again, big and small. Amia for good has suitable, fruitful, positive, beneficial, good. Big and small. Again, if you can, try to find a more succinct word. Like big could be considerable, sizable, substantial, vast, tremendous, immense, major, important. Okay, I have this list pre-prepared, obviously. Small, minor, unimportant, insignificant, trivial, minute. Okay, just there's other words. It's like talking about those phrasal verbs. You can come back and find the better one word than these basic words here. The word like, when we're talking about such as, including, I think like is so colloquial now that it sounds less and less academic. Mind you, I just wrote an article with a colleague, and when I was looking at his writing, he used like all throughout it. And I think it is fine, but I just like to stress to you that there sometimes are other alternatives. The word just as well, you know, you could have mere or merely. Please never use the word thing. Thing's not clear. What is it? It's the word anything, something, nothing. It's not clear. You need to tell me exactly what it is. What are you referring to? Really and very, we don't need them. People as well. Who? People's a difficult one. I generally don't like the word people because you need to tell me who exactly, which people. Is it firefighters? Is it government stakeholders? Like who exactly, which people? And the word actually as well. It's just not considered academic. So these are my personal words that I don't like and would encourage you to find a more specific alternative. But again, it doesn't mean you can't use them. All right, presentations. I'd just like to end, and I did refer to this earlier. All of the things we talk about in academic writing and academic vocabulary, you know, for written form, don't always follow through in presentations. Today I talked to you about didn't as a contraction. Completely fine in a physical presentation. Phrasal verbs. You know, we're very natural when we speak. If you're not relying on notes, or if you're not reading notes, you're going to want to use phrasal verbs. It's completely fine and acceptable. Personal pronouns as well, go for it. Idioms and cliches, again, sometimes it's out of our control. It may come out, but again, I would use them sparingly if you feel like you overuse them. So in English, we don't ever start an academic sentence with the conjunction and, but, or so. Well, actually, I've just had this debate with someone recently. You are finding it more common now. As I said, languages are living and changing, and you may find sentences that start with so. I still can't bring myself to be that person. Usually a conjunction like and, but, or so, they go in the middle of two independent clauses and they're preceded by that comma. Francisco, we have a comma before and between two independent clauses. So in spoken English, completely fine. But again, using them in written English, I think that's a debate that lots of people are currently having. All right. Oh my goodness, you're still here. So thanks for sticking around till the end. That's it. That's the end for today. I think it's probably a very long workshop. I appreciate you interacting and talking to each other about it all. There's a little link in the chat to a survey, just very quick, 4 questions. If you're able to fill that out, I would appreciate it. And just also to remind you that we do have other workshops. Kerry and I run at least 1 workshop a week. This week we have in fact, tomorrow I'll be facilitating the lounge. Michael, hopefully you can come to that. If anybody here today has never been to the lounge, it's basically a place where you write, and I sit there and I'm your cheerleader, and we also have an opportunity to connect and talk and reflect on our writing as well. So that's tomorrow. Kerry is doing a workshop on writing your research proposal. Thanks, Michael. If you are at that stage, come along to that workshop. The lounge for next week, so it's a weekly affair, is next Wednesday. Chanel, I think the writing your research proposal is, as far as I'm aware, it's in general. So yeah, I'm not actually sure. So I'm so sorry. And then the trade secrets one, yes, thank you. I see some people said they've been. It's a really great workshop, and I think it just gives you this whole summary of everything, things that you didn't know that you should know. So come along to that. And it's not just about writing; it's also, you know, different skill sets that we talk about. So there's the references, and I'm going to get that I Say You Say book and maybe have a look at that as well. But whew, I can take a breath now. Thanks again, everyone, for being here. And